2023 preview for the Chicago Bears. We are in year 2 of the Ryan Poles rebuild. The roster's in so much better shape than it was at this time last year. Think about the receivers they were trotting out there. I mean, it was a disaster, but we always knew it was going to. This is a to the studs teardown, and it was even more of a to the studs teardown into the year. They trade Robert Quinn, they trade Roquan Smith. You understand it. I understand all the moves that they've made for the most part. You bring in DJ Moore as part of the Carolina trade. You have other receiving options within the room that you didn't even have last year. They signed Nate Davis in free agency. They draft Darnell Wright with a 10th overall pick. They have made moves to make sure that the offense is in good enough shape to evaluate the quarterback while you start taking swings on a very young defense. In the aggregate, it all makes sense to me as part of this rebuilding plan. Now it just has to happen.
Yeah. You bottom out, get the first pick, and that usually marks a kind of new chapter for a team and a franchise. Usually you take a quarterback to do that. They traded out of it, but that's kind of shows where this team's at, especially at that position.
They got plenty of first round picks next year, buddy.
They do.
Do something with them.
And I don't know if you watch the Panthers this preseason, but I think Chicago fans are going to be watching a lot of Panthers games this year. But I also that's what the plan was. It's usually when teams bottom out like that, it's like, okay, we bring in the new regime. They're in year 2 of it, knowing that that's what they had to do. They had to. We talk about and focus a lot on Justin Fields, and I'm sure we will right now, but you also have to, all his supporting cast was not NFL quality, but also the entire defense, especially post Roquan Smith trade last year, where it was bad. It was an
XFL
bad,
team. I mean,
it was not
a
bag of names
football team on that side of the football, on that side. And I think they understood that.
They knew
and
that.
You're willing to live with that.
Yeah.
And that's okay because it gets you the number 1 pick, and then you get to trade it for a boatload of stuff. And hopefully that puts you in the right place. And that's where they are right now.
Yeah.
Biggest question about the Chicago Bears offense in 2023. Not even sure we have to ask it.
Yeah. It's what are we getting out of the fields? What is he? What are you? How many excuses can I make for him this year? That's I want to lower that and just actually get some more definitive answers on him. And I think that's how the Bears feel about it, is now we give him some semblance of a supporting cast that's improved, at least some pass catchers and some stuff up front, and maybe just a narrowing down of focus for scheme. And let's go. What do we actually have with you, as opposed to maybe like, oh, just the glimpses? Can we get some consistency out of you? That's the biggest question. I mean, that's can decide so much in Chicagoland. I mean, that's just so huge. As I know I'm preaching to the choir with this, but it's honestly, it's just such a huge thing with this team and just where everything's going to go from here.
All that matters. Is getting an answer on him by the end of the season, whatever that answer ends up being. I was talking to Kevin Fishbane about this on the Going Camping shows that we were doing when I was at camp. And he said, the worst case scenario is that if the Justin Fields is really bad and whatever else. I said, no, the worst case scenario is that you don't know. The worst case scenario is that you get to the end of this season and you're hemming and hawing about whether he's a guy worth committing to. And then that paralysis affects what you can do in this year's draft. And then you miss your shot to potentially take the off ramp to a quarterback. That's the worst case scenario. Yep. So you want an answer by the end of this year, one way or the other. And that's what the offseason was designed to do, was to get you that answer. So they go out, they make the moves along the offensive line, they go get DJ Moore. My concern with this, before we get into Fields at all, is what that supporting cast already looks like compared to what it was supposed to look like. Tevin Jenkins is hurt. It was supposed to be their starting left guard. He is not going to play during the start of the regular season. They don't know how long he's going to be out. So that means Cody Whitehair is slide to guard, and now Lucas Patrick is back playing center. We're already in a bad spot, okay? Before the season even starts, you're moving pieces around in the 3rd week of August with your offensive line that has never really played together before, and you're chipping away at that case for the offensive line being better before things even get going. Nate Davis, who they signed in free agency, has barely practiced. And there's no actual explanation as to why. There's been no reasoning. Like, they haven't said he's hurt or whether it's something beyond that. So that's really strange. And then you have a rookie at right tackle who has not really practiced with the guy who he's playing next to before they head into the season. This is not great.
And he got banged up.
Yes. And he's gotten banged up. So this is not a good note on which to start, with the offensive line being a key reason for why this was supposed to be better. Okay.
And even when they're healthy, it was average-ish at best.
Yes.
That's
it was serviceable, functional was what you were trying to get to. And you hope that you're going to have a step forward from the second-year left tackle who had some flashes as a rookie, as a fifth-round pick, but has a long way to go. But that is another question mark. So that's the issue up there. Receivers, I think they'll probably be fine, right? It's a better group than it's been. DJ Moore is a good player. The field stuff, even if you're trying to take the most optimistic view of it, some of the stats, and we've gone over a lot of them before, boy, are they troubling, okay? Among quarterbacks with at least 200 dropbacks since 2000, only 3 guys have posted a sack rate of at least 14% in a season. 3. Justin Fields last season, Andrew Walter in 2006, and Derek Carr in 2002. That notorious Derek Carr season. Yeah. David Carr. That notorious David Carr season with the Texans. It has happened 3 times. Next one. If you remove scrambles, Justin Fields finished dead last in EPA per dropback last season in the NFL. The number that he hit is among the 14 worst seasons since 2000 for quarterbacks if you remove scrambles. Some of the seasons involved in that list: Mark Sanchez's rookie year, Josh Rosen's rookie year, Deshaun Kaiser's rookie year, Blaine Gabbert's rookie year, Blake Bortles' rookie year, Mark Sanchez's rookie year, Carson Wentz in 2020. Remember that year?
That was a lot of fun.
2005, Kyle Orton. Bears fans will remember that season where the defense was incredible and the offense couldn't move the ball.
That also doesn't narrow it down for Bears fans.
This is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Even if he's going to take a step forward, even if you hope he can take a step forward, where he's starting from with some of these underlying numbers is troubling.
Yeah.
So what does the step forward do, and where does the step forward leave you, even if it happens, I think becomes the most important question.
It is. He has to. And rewatching him, you still see the flashes, of course, with the using his legs and everything, and even pushing the ball downfield. But he has to be an NFL starter, to like be a guy that you can build around. Has to accomplish the simple plays. Just has to. There's can't be any more compounding bad plays and making just catastrophic ones. And I know sometimes he has gotten better at trying to. I always use the term big game hunter, at trying to limit some of those bad plays, but it's still there. It's in his nature as a player. But also, just when I say simple plays, underneath throws. Can he improve timing, anticipation, all the little things?
That's my biggest question. It is the timing. It is playing with just better rhythm and timing and anticipation consistently, because it just hasn't happened often enough. It hasn't. Yeah. They condensed the offense so much for him last year, and it still was problematic when you'd see him in dropback situations near the end of the season. Everyone thinks that it was just this straight line up after that game against the Patriots on Monday night when they switched to that kind of quarterback.
Oh my God, there were some bad games after that.
The last couple games of the season, the games they played against the Falcons and the Lions, those were rough games. I don't think a lot of people were watching those. I was watching those. Those were rough games. And so it's not like they ended the season on this incredibly high note. Yeah. He has to go so far to be a quarter. Let's say the Panthers, they get the fifth pick from the Panthers and the 7th pick from them. He has to go so far for you not to try to use those picks to go get one of these quarterback prospects. And I think it's really, really important to keep reminding people of that.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people don't see it that way.
No, they don't. And like being average throwing the ball would be a incredible, like you were saying.
Oh my God.
It's an incredible improvement. And I think people are going, I went on a show last spring and it was just Hogan Johns, and they asked like how many total yards or how many passing yards would be like a good year for Justin Fields. And I went upper 2000s. If he breaks 3,000, that's a huge year for him. And Bears fans were mad at me. Like they said, only 3,000 yards. Are you kidding me? It's like, that would be such a gigantic improvement for him. That would just start with step 1. So like, even for Bears fans, I'm a Fields defender. I like a lot of the traits that Fields has. He has to get better at actual quarterback play, meaning just the little things of staying on schedule and sometimes just eating a throw or taking a smart play, throwing it away. Has he done that a little bit better? Yes, he has, but it needs to get loads better. It needs to get to like where that's like a real thing where you're not worried about him just compounding mistakes. And I don't want to like this can come across as like a backhanded compliment, but him and Daniel Jones are cut from the same cloth. And I mean that I think Fields has way more talent than Jones. I'm sorry, Giants fans, but he does as far as a runner and even just maybe some of the throwing traits that he has. But as far as timing, holding on the ball too long, some best pushing the ball, best using their legs, sometimes having to narrow down the field for them with play action and nakeds and maybe just one point and shoot concepts. Their strengths are very similar and their weaknesses are very similar. They'll compound mistakes. I think what the Giants did last year was amazing for Daniel Jones and just narrowing what he does. That's what Fields needs right now. Is that someone you invest in or not? I don't know. You have to see how it looks. I think he's a better athlete and a better tier of player than Jones. That's my estimation, but that's the type of player that you have to make him out to be. And that's where you're going to get the most out of him. Is that what you want to invest in? You have to see.
Narrowing the focus is a great way to put it. They really did such a good job of creating kind of a keyhole that Daniel Jones saw the game through last year in a good way. And I think that there are things within the Bears offense, the way they read stuff, where the progressions are such that they're putting a lot on him. They're not narrowing anything. These are full field, like pure progression reads within this system. And even if they've tweaked the quarterback run game to a place that better suits him, I think there's still elements of the passing game where you're going to do it or you're not, buddy. Like we're not putting the training wheels on you here. And that may not be the best approach, but I think it's going to tell you a lot about him by the end of this.
And it might be his, by all accounts, Justin Fields is very smart and works at this really hard. It might be for me where I'm just like scared of it. And you never know how these guys, all of a sudden a light bulb turns on and they just go, oh, and it clicks for them. But that's the thing. That's playing with fire. You're betting on something that's
I don't think that happens very often. I think that there
are
elements.
I
don't.
Don't. Yes.
That does not.
It's very hard.
When it's the feel and the pocket stuff.
Yeah.
When it is the stuff that it's just about just
innate sense.
Yes. Just these innate qualities. Yeah. It doesn't happen with those things. You can get maybe a little bit more accurate things of that nature, but for the most part, I don't think you sense the game better with time. And that's my concern about him, is that I think his sense for when things get muddy and when things get really dirty in the pocket is not very good. And I just don't know how much better that stuff is going to get. I will be so thrilled if it does. But I just think that it is so far for him to go in some of those areas that it's going to be a really difficult thing to climb.
Yes. I mean, it's not often you say get down to a single digit sack rate, but for him, like that'd be just an amazing improvement. And that's the thing, is that the negative is so negative with him. And again, I still like Justin Fields. I do. And so any Bears fans are going, what the fuck happened? I still like him. It's just that you have to understand what he has shown and what he can handle. And that's what usually a player entering year 3, what's the line? Like the leopard doesn't change its spots, like that. That's kind of what you're figuring out with this player. And that's what you have to hone in on and figure out, okay, this is exactly what he's good at. Now, I just want to say this, why I was high on Fields is because his toolbox is extraordinary as far as an athlete, and like his throwing ability when he does get hot and the throws that he can make on the move and all those types of things. But right now it's like, okay, now we just need to see that for a whole drive, as opposed not even just one play of it. And that's where I don't know. I want to see it. That's why I'm kind of staying in the middle here, because I just want to see it before I kind of like go either direction in the regular season. Because in the preseason, all we've seen is freaking like 2 screen balls and like one scramble route to DJ Moore. That was pretty sweet, but you don't see much in the preseason. So it has to happen in the regular season.
The hope is that getting a guy like DJ Moore creates more trust in who you're throwing the ball to, and that allows you to play faster. That is the hope, and that is what it has done for some other guys. When you have A.J. Brown and when you have Stephon Diggs, it's those moments where, should I throw this? That doesn't even come into play because you're throwing it. Look at what Jalen Hurts did last year with A.J. Brown. Look at the positions that they put him in, and look at how quickly he was making some of those decisions because of who he was throwing the football to. That matters. When you have a ton of trust in the number 1 read in a progression with a true number 1 receiver, you can play faster. It's possible. There are reasons for justifiable optimism here, but it's really important to put into context just how far he would have to go to get there. That's it. Yep. I understand it. And if it happened, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked, but it's important to be realistic with this.
I'm going to take a 1 play sample size here to talk about what you're saying. When you have a number 1 guy and knowing to go with him, they had 1 snap of man coverage on 3rd down this preseason. Justin Fields targeted DJ Moore. So that's
the exact situation I was talking about with AJ Brown. Third down, man coverage, let the ball rip.
Take him.
Go throw it to your guy. That's
it.
That's the most, if that is one element of this offense, that hopefully is reasons that they can take a step forward. But again, it's a long way to go.
I also want to give out before we get to the defense, Roschon Johnson. I just want to say I've accumulated all stock I can on him in real life and maybe fantasy wise too, but really like him. And I think he's doing some nice things this preseason, but
I'm excited about him. I'm very excited about him.
Good football player. I love him. I love any guy that could just step in and be pass pro, good at pass pro right away. Yeah. You're my type of guy.
Biggest question about the Bears defense this season.
Like, who are the building blocks? That's it. It's what any of these guys are real football players that we just drafted. I know we signed the linebackers, Jaquan Brisker. There's some vets in the back end that we kind of like, but then who do we have up front? Do we have any pass rush? Do we have any needle movers that we're excited about in the years to come? That's the biggest question. I think scheme wise, what Eberflus was doing was actually very interesting in this defensive staff. I'm actually very optimistic. I also want to say that. Very optimistic about this coaching staff as a whole. I like both sides of the ball. I like Luke Getsy. I like Matt Eberflus. I like a lot of their coaches. But I just, what does it look like with a little bit better talent? They still have a long ways to go before I think this side of the ball has NFL quality talent. But what are those building blocks? What is it? What is it going to look like now that actually has players that can maybe make an effect on the game?
Can you leave this season with 5 to 6 of those guys that you feel good about? That would be a huge.
That's a good way to put it.
Brisker, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, who they drafted in the second round of corner. He's going to start for them. Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens, both of whom were second round picks this year. Jalen Johnson. Can you leave this with 5 to 6 guys under the age of like 24 that you feel like you can build around on defense? That would be a huge win. Tremaine Edmonds is a young player. Like, can this be a young, exciting group by the end of the year? That's it.
That I will say is like they do have question marks throughout the whole team, really, but the defense is, I like where the spine of this defense might be going, which is hugely important in this defense. And the Eberflus defense is having that spine. We talk about it all the time. Sometimes the negative with teams maybe like the Chargers or something like that. But the young defensive tackles, Zach Pickens has looked nice this preseason, especially in the run game. The linebackers that they invested in, and then Brisker and Eddie Johnson. Eddie Johnson, is getting older, but Brisker what did I say? Tyler?
Eddie Johnson.
Sorry, not Ernie Johnson, at least. But having on the back end, Brisker, I think, is a plus player already. So I do like the spine and where the direction of that's going. Kyler Gordon, yes, is in the slot now, which I think is his best role. And it looks like this preseason that he's been there about 3/4 of his snaps. So
yeah, that's his spot. And I think
that's when he was at Washington.
Outside. Yep. Yeah, that's what he played last year.
Yeah, so, I like them coming out of Washington. They kind of mixed them in and out, I think, because of injuries and stuff too. But slots is his specialty, which is him and his Washington teammate McDuffie. It's kind of funny that they're both the best at the same thing.
The way that they've built the defense, they had those 3 second-round picks this year. You trade Roquan, you get one in the Panthers trade, and they're just betting on traits in the second round on defensive players, just trying to load this thing with young, athletic pieces that can get coached up. And you have that in the draft, and then you go get Edmonds, who's supposed to be this skeleton key type option that can kind of unlock the way that Eberflus wants to play. You get the plan, but it's still very young. And again, I think it's still about understanding you're in step 1 or step 2 of this, not in step 5, and that's okay. It's very okay on this side of the ball.
You took the 1 step up of the first step and you're halfway up to the second step. That's where this team is right now. Like, they're not even, the foot's not down. It's halfway up to make that next step.
X factor for Chicago Bears. Who do you got?
Justin Fields.
I said the offensive line just because I didn't want to say Fields because I knew you would. But the offensive line being healthy and the offensive line like actually coming together and them getting those players on the field, that to me is the biggest thing outside of Fields.
It's so tied together because the thing that makes Justin Fields' weaknesses compound is interior pressure. And what have you laid out that they have no depth and have already have moving pieces already? The interior of the offensive line. So that's a huge giant X factor.
From all accounts, Ja'Tyre Carter has had a pretty solid preseason. He was a 7th round pick last year. He's going to be the guard depth. So hopefully if that they need him to step into one of those spots, he's able to. But right now, I mean, Cody Whitehair can't even play center because he's got a cast on his hand. Like that's all the things that are kind of compounding right now, which is not great.
It's not.
Breakout candidate for the 2023 Bears. Who do you got?
Jaquan Brisker, really liked him coming out of Penn State, liked him all last year, even if he did blow the one play against the Eagles when he went into the wrong gap on a blitz where they actually had it dialed up perfectly. But this guy's awesome. I think he's going to be a standout Bear for a decade. I'm calling my shot with him.
I hope so.
He is just good, man. Just a good football player, smart blitzer, coverage, run. He's just great. Really just I think can be a centerpiece of that defense for a long time to come.
I hope you're right. I was going to pick him, but I knew you would, so I didn't do that. I'm going to go with DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus Walker is somebody the Bears spent a decent amount of money on in free agency. It's not somebody that I think a lot of people probably tabbed as like a big ticket free agent item. I don't think he moved the needle for a lot of Bears fans. He was a rotational piece for the Titans last year. It was like a 28-year-old pass rusher, and he was incredibly effective on a per snap basis. And I went back when I was rewatching the Chargers offense before going to their camp, and I think the Jags offense as well. And I liked watching teams against the Titans because I think the Titans always have a sound plan for the offenses they're playing against. So I think it's a good defense against which to study an offense. So I went back and I'm watching all these Titans games, and I'm looking at number 95, and I'm like, this guy just has a lot of juice. He's lined up inside. He's lined up on the edge. He's just constantly jumping off the screen. And he signed like a $7 million a year deal to be a starter for the Bears, but really just a mid-tier pass rusher in free agency. And I think he's going to surprise some people. I think he's going to be somebody that just has a much better season than maybe people outside Chicago are thinking because they don't even know who DeMarcus Walker is. So that's who I'm going to go with.
I like that. They need those pieces, though.
Yes.
They need everything.
They signed Yannick Ngakoue. I still think the pass rush is a work in progress, but I'm excited about DeMarcus Walker. I was incredibly impressed with him when I watched him last year.
Not if you watch Travis Gibson throughout the entire preseason, just absolutely throttle offensive lines. Like, I don't know.
He's probably not even going to make the team.
That's unreal. Like, what happened? He had his Wheaties a couple of those games.
I think the scheme switch to the 4-3 and just a lot of different complicating factors.
He's a 3-4 Sam or
which
3 down.
Somebody should trade for him. Somebody absolutely should trade for him as a rotational pass rusher.
Preferably a day 2 pick. No, I'm kidding.
Listen, if you want to give him a 3rd round pick for Travis Gibson, we're fine with that. What is success for the 2023 Bears? Good God.
Getting an answer on Justin Fields that I think is a success. I even say a good answer. I think a definitive answer is that's it. And knowing where
I have nothing to add. I have absolutely nothing to add. That's exactly how I feel.
That's it.
All right.
But having said all that, I do like a lot of things that the Bears are doing, but it's just they have a couple more steps to go.
I'm with you. I think the process and the moves that they've made, I get the plan. The plan makes sense to me.
It does.
And they've done a very good job. I think there are a couple of moves you can quibble with. You know, the Chase Claypool trade was definitely over aggressive, things like that. But I get why they've done what they've done.
It's all made sense. I think that's. I know it sounds like a slap, but it's actually a compliment. It's better than some other teams that some moves they make.